You know that feeling when someone crosses a line and thinks they got away with it? Yeah, this couple thought they were clever. They weren't. Because what happened the next morning? Let's just say, they probably spent hours waiting for something that was never coming. Full cinematic expansion. We had been looking forward to this trip for months. Not just any trip. This was one of those rare vacations where everything lines up perfectly. Work schedules, budget, timing, it all just worked. A Caribbean resort, warm breeze, crystal clear water, and most importantly, peace. The kind of peace you don't realize you've been missing until you finally sit down, lean back, and feel the sun hit your face without a single worry in your mind. The perfect spot. On the first day we found it. Our spot. It wasn't just any pair of loungers. It was perfectly placed. Right under a palm tree that gave just enough shade when the sun got brutal in the afternoon. Close enough to the bar that getting a drink didn't feel like a mission, but far enough that it stayed quiet. No screaming kids, no loud groups, just the sound of waves, and the occasional clink of ice in a glass. We looked at each other, smiled, and my wife said quietly, "This is it." And she was right. A routine built on peace. For the next several days, that spot became part of our routine. We'd wake up, grab breakfast, head down early, and settle in. Same loungers, same shade, same calm rhythm. It became our little world. We'd talk, laugh, sometimes just sit in silence. And honestly, that silence meant everything. They arrived. Around day 4, things shifted. A new couple showed up. At first, nothing unusual. Resorts always have people coming and going. But my wife noticed something before I did. She leaned toward me one afternoon, her voice low. "Do you see them?" I glanced over casually. A couple, mid-30s maybe, sitting a few loungers away. They weren't just relaxing. They were watching. Not constantly, but enough to notice. Looking over. Whispering. Then looking away quickly. I shrugged it off. "Probably just people watching," I said. But my wife didn't look convinced. Over the next couple of days, it kept happening. Every now and then, we'd catch them glancing at us, or at our loungers. It wasn't aggressive, but it wasn't normal either. You know that feeling when something's slightly off, but you can't prove it? Yeah, that. Still, we didn't let it ruin anything. Why would we? We were on vacation. The last morning. Then came our final day. We were leaving the next morning, so this was our last full day to enjoy everything. We woke up early. A little earlier than usual, actually. We wanted to soak in every last moment. Breakfast felt slower. More intentional. Like we were trying to stretch time. And then we walked down toward the beach. Already picturing ourselves in our spot one last time. The moment everything changed. But as soon as we got there, I stopped. Something felt wrong. My wife slowed beside me. And then we both saw it. Our loungers were taken. Not by people. By stuff. 2 towels. A bag. Some random personal items. Just placed there. Claiming the space. But no one was around. I checked the time. It was early. Too early for someone to just disappear for hours. I felt that slight irritation rising. But before I could say anything, my wife spoke, and her tone had changed. Completely. "They did this." I looked at her. "What?" She nodded subtly toward the couple from the previous days. "That's them. I know it." The silent decision. Now, here's the thing. We could have moved the stuff. We could have complained. We could have waited. But something about it, the timing, the history, the way they'd been watching us, it didn't feel accidental. It felt intentional. And that's what made it worse. Still, we didn't react. Not yet. We just looked at each other. And without saying much, we made a quiet decision. We'd let it go. At least for now. A lesser spot. We found another place. Further away. No shade. Longer walk to the bar. Not terrible. But not ours. We sat down, but the vibe was different. The comfort was gone. And yeah, it bothered me more than I wanted to admit. The confirmation. A couple of hours later, my wife went into the water. I stayed back, scrolling on my phone. That's when I saw them. Walking toward me. The couple. Same ones. They slowed slightly as they passed. Looked directly at me. And then, they smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not a polite one. It was the kind of smile that says, "Yeah, we know what we did." And then, they laughed. Walked past like nothing happened. When my wife came back, I told her. She didn't look surprised. She just shook her head slowly and said, "I told you. The idea." That's when something shifted. Not anger. Not exactly. Something quieter. Something more calculated. My wife leaned closer, lowering her voice, and said something that made me pause, then smile. The moment my wife said that, I knew this wasn't over, because what we were about to do didn't involve yelling, didn't involve arguing, didn't even involve them. At first, short CTA. If you've ever dealt with entitled people like this, just wait, because this gets uncomfortably satisfying. Story continues. The plan takes shape. I looked at her, really looked this time, because there was something different in her expression. Calm. Too calm. Not the kind of calm you have when you've let something go, but the kind you have when you've already decided something. I leaned closer. "What are you thinking?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she glanced over toward our old loungers, the ones now occupied by nothing but their things, still sitting there, untouched. Then she looked back at me. A small smile formed. Not wide. Not dramatic. Just enough to say, "Trust me." Setting the stage. We didn't act right away. That's the part that made it feel different. Anyone can react in the moment. But this was deliberate. Calculated. We stayed in our new, worse spot for a while longer. Let them enjoy their stolen comfort. Let them feel like they'd won. And eventually, right around noon, they showed up. Their arrival. I noticed them before my wife did. Walking casually like they owned the place, drinks in hand, sunglasses on. No rush. No concern. They reached the loungers. Paused. Looked around briefly. And then settled in like nothing had happened. Like it was always theirs. My wife came back from the water again just as they were getting comfortable. She followed my gaze, saw them, and exhaled slowly. Not frustration. Not even anger. Just acknowledgement. The first move, subtle. We didn't approach them. We didn't say a word. Instead, we got up, walked past them, close enough that they'd notice. And for just a second, eye contact happened again. Same look. Same smug energy. Like they were waiting for us to say something. To complain. To make a scene. We didn't. And that's when I saw something shift. Just slightly. A flicker of confusion. Because we weren't reacting the way they expected. The reset. We left the beach area completely. Headed back to our room. And that's where things changed. The plan revealed, partially. Inside the room, my wife closed the door and turned to me. "Tomorrow's our last morning." I nodded. "Exactly." She walked over to the balcony, looking out toward the beach. "They like control." I raised an eyebrow. She continued. "They didn't just take the spot. They made sure we saw it. Then they waited. Then they laughed." Every word was measured. Precise. She wasn't guessing. She was reading them. "So we don't take it back," she said softly. "We let them think it's theirs." I felt that slow realization creeping in. And then, she turned back to me. That same small smile. "Then we make them wait." Crescent moon, the long night. That night felt different. We went through the motions. Dinner. Drinks. A walk along the beach. But underneath it all, there was anticipation. Not loud. Not obvious. But there. Like something quietly building. Back in the room, we prepared. Not in some dramatic way. No big gestures. Just small, intentional choices. We gathered what we had left. Our unused sunscreen. The inflatable floats we hadn't bothered packing yet. Fresh towels from the room. Everything looked normal. Harmless. But the intention behind it? Not harmless at all. The execution begins. The next morning, we woke up early. Earlier than we had all week. Before the sun fully rose. Before most people even thought about heading down. There was a stillness in the air. That quiet, almost surreal calm you only get right before a place wakes up. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. Everything had already been decided. Returning to the scene. When we got to the beach, it was empty. Completely. The loungers, our loungers, sat there untouched, waiting. My wife stepped forward first, placed one towel down, perfectly straight, then another, folded neatly, intentional, almost inviting. I placed the sunscreen beside it, not tossed, not messy, carefully positioned, like someone had just stepped away for a moment. Then the floats, bright, noticeable, impossible to miss. When we stepped back, it looked convincing, too convincing. The silent exit. We didn't stay. That was the key. We didn't sit down, didn't linger, didn't even look back for long. We just left. The first strange moment. Later that morning, we positioned ourselves far enough to watch, but not be obvious. Different area, different energy. Around mid-morning, they showed up, same as the day before, relaxed, unbothered, expecting the same outcome, but this time, they stopped. Even from a distance I could see it. That slight pause, that hesitation. They looked at the loungers, at the towels, at the items, then at each other. One of them gestured, confused. The second event, confusion builds. They didn't sit down right away. That was new. Yesterday, no hesitation, no doubt. Now, they hovered, talking quietly, looking around, trying to figure it out. I leaned back in my chair, watching, feeling something shift inside me. Not anger, not even satisfaction yet, just control. The third event, tension spikes. A few minutes passed, then more. They started scanning the area, looking for someone, anyone. The woman crossed her arms. The man pulled out his phone, said something, shook his head, and then, he stepped closer to the loungers, reached down, paused, like he wasn't sure if he should touch anything. The panic begins. That's when it got interesting. He pulled out his phone again, typed something, showed it to her. She frowned, looked around again, more urgently now, because here's the thing. When something is clearly taken, but no one is there, it messes with you. Are they coming back? Did you miss them? Are you about to cause a problem? And suddenly, the confidence from yesterday? Gone. Realization building. Slowly. They sat down eventually, but not comfortably. Not like before. There was hesitation, movement, restlessness. They kept looking around, waiting, watching. For someone who never came. And that's when I saw it. That subtle shift again. Not arrogance anymore. Not control. Something else. Something closer to doubt. And just as I leaned back, watching it all unfold, I felt my wife's hand brush against mine. She didn't look at me. Didn't say anything. But I could tell. This wasn't over. Not even close. Because whatever they were feeling right now, it was only the beginning, and somewhere in that growing discomfort, that quiet confusion, that creeping uncertainty, something started to click. Not for them, not yet, but soon, very soon, because the moment hadn't hit them yet, that exact second where everything shifts, where the brain connects the dot, where the question turns into something much worse. Wait, something's not right. And when that moment finally comes, it doesn't explode, it sinks in, slowly. They thought it was just a pair of chairs, just a small win, just another moment where they got what they wanted. But what they didn't realize was that from the moment they sat down, they were already losing. Story continues. The moment of realization. It didn't happen all at once. That's what made it powerful. It crept in, slowly, quietly, like a thought you try to ignore but can't. At first, they kept pretending everything was normal, sitting on the loungers, adjusting their towels, sipping their drinks, but their eyes gave everything away. They kept scanning, left, right, behind them, toward the water, toward the bar, waiting, because now there was a question in their heads that wouldn't go away. Where are the people who put this here? Connecting the dots, the man stood up first. He walked a few steps away from the loungers, turned in a slow circle, like he expected someone to suddenly appear. The woman stayed seated, but her posture had changed. Rigid, alert, uncomfortable. They started talking, at first quietly, then a little louder. Not loud enough for others to notice, but enough for tension to leak through. I couldn't hear the exact words, but I didn't need to. You could see the conversation, confusion, doubt, frustration, and then, that moment, the man looked back at the loungers, at the neatly placed towels, at the sunscreen, at the floats, then at the empty space around them, and something clicked, not fully, but enough. His expression changed, not annoyance anymore, not confusion, recognition. The full realization begins. He said something to her. Short, sharp. She froze, looked at him, then back at the loungers, then around again. Faster this time, more urgent, and suddenly, you could see it in her face. That same thought. This feels familiar. Because it was. They had done this. Just yesterday. The mirror effect. What we gave them wasn't chaos. Not yet. We gave them a mirror. Their own behavior, reflected back at them, and that's what made it so uncomfortable, because now, they weren't in control anymore. They were in the exact same position we had been in, but worse, because this time, they knew what it felt like, the reveal of the plan. That was the plan, not to take the spot back, not to confront, not to argue, but to recreate the exact situation, and walk away. To make them sit there, in uncertainty, to let their own minds do the work, because the most uncomfortable feeling isn't anger, it's doubt. Chaos intensifies. The man grabbed his phone again, this time faster, more aggressive. He typed, stopped, deleted, typed again, showed it to her. She shook her head, hard. Now they were both looking around constantly. Every few seconds, the woman stood up, walked a few steps, then came back. She didn't want to leave the spot. Because what if someone came back? What if they lost it? Again. The stress builds. Minutes passed. But it didn't feel like minutes. It felt heavier, longer. They weren't relaxing anymore. Not even close. They were guarding, watching, waiting. Every person walking by got a glance, a check. A moment of hope, then disappointment. The breakdown begins. Then something shifted again. The man stood up suddenly, said something louder this time. Frustrated. The woman responded sharply, defensive. Their calm, controlled energy from the day before? Gone. Now it was messy, unfiltered. They started arguing, not screaming, but close. You could see it in their movements, hands gesturing, head shaking, because now, it wasn't about the chairs anymore. It was about control, and they had lost it. Emotional collapse, deep detail. The woman sat back down hard, crossed her arms, looked away from him. The man paced, ran his hand through his hair, checked his phone again, then just stood there, looking at the loungers like they'd betrayed him. And that's when it hit hardest. Not the inconvenience, not the weight, but the feeling, that uncomfortable, creeping realization that we did this to someone else. The turning point, the arguing slowed, the pacing stopped, the energy dropped, and in its place, something quieter appeared. Acceptance, not full, not peaceful, but enough. They sat down again. This time differently. Not confidently. Not like they owned the space, but like they were borrowing it. Carefully. The twist, respect emerges. At one point, the man looked around again. Slower this time. And then, he let out a small breath. Almost like a laugh. Not amused. Not really. More like, okay, I see what this is. He leaned back, shook his head slightly, and for just a second, there was something unexpected in his expression. Respect. Because whoever did this didn't confront them, didn't argue, didn't escalate. They outplayed them, quietly, completely, the slow end of chaos. As the hours passed, the intensity faded, the checking slowed, the tension eased, not because they felt better, but because they realized nothing was coming, no one was returning, no confrontation, no explanation, just silence, and that silence was louder than anything else. The final moment. We didn't go back. Not once. We let the day end naturally. From a distance, we watched them leave eventually. Not laughing, not smiling, just quiet, thoughtful, different, emotional reflection. On the walk back to our room, neither of us spoke for a while. The sun was lower now, the air cooler, and everything felt settled. Finally, I looked at my wife. Worth it. She thought for a moment, then nodded. Not because of what we did, she said softly, but because of what they felt. And I understood. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about balance, about showing someone, without words, what their actions actually feel like. Final life lesson. Because sometimes, people don't learn from being told. They learn from experiencing, from sitting in the exact situation they created, and realizing, this doesn't feel good. Ending calm, powerful. The next morning, we checked out. No drama, no confrontation, just another couple leaving a resort. But as we walked past the beach one last time, those loungers were empty again. Just chairs, just shade, just a spot. Nothing special. And yet, for one day, they meant everything. Final CTA. If you've ever dealt with people like this, would you have done the same? Or handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and come back for more.